Take him for his word, George W. Bush says. He was on the Today Show this morning earlier promoting his brand new book.
Yeah, Marc Thiessen joins us now. Marc Thiessen's former speechwriter for Bush 43 and a best-selling author, terror expert among your many talents. Marc, what's your reaction to President Bush out in front and center again?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. George W. Bush is one of the most gracious people I've ever known, and he didn't criticize Barack Obama for 8 years. I'm sure he's not going to start criticizing Donald Trump in his first month in office, as he pointed out. So good for him. And
Trump has not been great to 43.
No, he hasn't. He said some pretty brutal things. He said that he basically, accused him of knowing about the 9/11 attacks and not stopping them and lying us into war in Iraq. And during the entire campaign, not once did George W. Bush respond or attack him or criticize him. And as the president, he hasn't done it either. So he's a very gracious man.
Well, he did talk about the media there, though, as you heard, saying,
Sure.
They need to give President Trump more of a chance. Also looking right about Lauer saying, you don't matter as much anymore about mainstream media. What did you make of that?
That was pretty good. It's true. I mean, look, there's people get their news from a lot of different sources and a lot more sources today than they did. And the media is in a state of hysteria about the Trump administration. I mean, no matter what happens, they overreact. He called a gaggle of a few people together, and Sean Spicer, and all of a sudden it's the end of democracy. So they need to calm down and report on what's happening. Hold Trump to account. They have an important role in our democracy, but get a grip.
Sure. That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what G.W. Bush said just there.
Yeah. Well, the press loves to talk about the press. You know that, Mark.
Sure.
Meanwhile, Matt Lauer also asked George W. about this executive order upcoming. We expect it probably on Wednesday, could be Thursday. It's been moving around left and right. Some have referred to it in the press as a Muslim ban. Asked about that. Here's what he said.
Banning people from 7 predominantly Muslim countries from entering this country, do we make it easier or harder to fight the war on terrorism?
Well, I think it's very hard to fight the war on terrorism if we're in retreat. And I think we learned that lesson, that if the United States decides to pull out before a free society emerges, it's going to be hard to defeat them. The enemy is very good about exploiting weakness. It's going to be very important, if that's the goal, to defeat ISIS, which I believe it should be, that we project strength.
I just want to make sure I understand. You for or against the ban? You're against the ban?
I am for an immigration policy that's welcoming and that upholds the law.
Okay, what do you think about that?
Again, didn't answer the question directly because he's not going to take a shot at Donald Trump, but he did take a veiled shot at Barack Obama.
He did.
The reason we're having this problem today is because we followed a policy of retreat for the last 8 years, and we pulled our troops out of Iraq. He was going to pull them all out of Afghanistan, and ISIS is now has a presence in 18 countries. They've established caliphates. They've established affiliates all over the world. They've carried out attacks in the West, and so the Bush administration's policy was fight them over there, so we do not have to face them here at home.
Right.
And I think the Trump administration is going to go back to that policy.
And what happened is, and it must be frustrating to Bush, President Bush, because the surge worked.
Yes.
They had an election afterwards. It was so quiet. They pulled all the troops out irresponsibly without a deal. And now his legacy is tarred because of it. Meanwhile, President Trump will have a joint session of Congress address, obviously his first one tomorrow. If Marc Thiessen was behind the pen, what would you put in the prompter?
Well, so, the State of the Union address or address to Congress in this case, is the most watched speech a president gives. And usually the first one is the most watched of a president's term. So Barack Obama got 52.4 million people his first address, and he never reached that number again. Wow. So the amount of people who will be Donald Trump will face probably the largest audience of his entire presidency on Tuesday night. So he has an opportunity to really reach out to millions of Americans who are trying to still figure out what do they think of this guy, not just his supporters, but people who want to give him a chance and want to hear from him. So what I would do if I was him is I would reach out my hand in a spirit of bipartisan cooperation to these seething Democrats who are following a policy of resist everything and dare them not to take his hand. He should go out and offer bipartisan cooperation on health care, bipartisan cooperation on tax reform, bipartisan cooperation on infrastructure, bipartisan cooperation on helping working mothers, and let them say no. Let them, if they want to say resist everything, make them resist bipartisanship.
Does he mention media tonight, or you let that go?
I think you let that go. You don't do that in a State of the Union address. Elevate You know, be hopeful, lay out a positive, hopeful, optimistic. He says he wants to make America great again. Show us how America will be great again under his presidency. Show us his plan to make America great again, and dare the opposition to join him in that effort. And if they don't, it's on them.
Well, you know what? He can mention the media when he pauses for a moment when Paul Ryan is behind him clapping, and he sends out a tweet, probably mid-speech.
Marc Thiessen with the pen this morning. Good to have you here.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's go over to Heather.